Thank you very much for joining us here this evening. You're watching Business at 9 and I'm Nivedna Prabhu. Tonight, we discuss a major development shaking up India's digital landscape. The Promotion and Regulation of Online Gaming Bill 2025, passed by both houses of parliament this week, is set to reshape the online gaming industry and, of course, its ripple effects that are already causing waves in the advertising world. The bill, in fact, introduced by Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, imposes a blanket ban on real money gaming platforms, including popular apps. It prohibits any online game involving monetary stakes, whether this is based on skill or chance, citing concerns over addiction, financial distress, and even national security risks like money laundering. Violators, in fact, face steep penalties, up to 3 years in prison or fines of 1 crore for operators and up to 2 years or 50 lakh for those advertising such platforms. Now, for the ad world, the ad industry, this is a huge shift because real money gaming companies have been major players in India's ad market, particularly in sports sponsorships. Cricket, which dominates the sports advertising space, at least in India, has seen massive investments from fantasy gaming platforms. Industry experts estimate these platforms contribute significantly to ad spends, with some reports suggesting they account for a substantial portion of sports broadcasting and media revenues. But on the flip side, the bill is a boon for esports and social gaming, which are now government-backed as legitimate industries. However, like we put into context, the ad industry faces challenges. The gaming sector, valued at $3.8 billion and projected to reach $9.2 billion by 2029, employs over 130,000 skilled workers. A decline in ad spends could repel through agencies and content creators, with some predicting job losses and reduced budgets for sports broadcasting. So the question tonight, will brands pivot to esports and social gaming, or will the loss of real money gaming revenue create a void too large to fill? Stay with us as we explore this story, because joining me on the show tonight is Prahlad Kakkar, ad maker. Mr. Kakkar, thank you very much for taking the time out. It's always been a pleasure to be in conversation with you, so we're definitely looking forward to how you're essentially looking at this tonight. But let's begin with the aspect of to how this has, of course, been imposed, and it's a blanket ban on real money gaming ads. Abruptly, in fact, if you look at those numbers, also removing over 10,000 crore. But how do you see this sudden vacuum, in fact, reshaping perhaps the stability of Indian advertising economics?
Well, it's going to hit them hard. But they should have thought about it in terms of the ethical terms, because there is a valid reason why the government has banned not only the advertising but also the platforms themselves, because they are addictive, they are harmful, and it's gambling basically, and gambling is in the grey area unethical. So if they've been making lots of money so far, good for them. They can go home now and beat their breasts and cry over it, because it's all over about the shouting. They have to start finding legitimate clients.
Mr. Kakkar, as you point that out, fair enough. This is, we're talking about the aspect as to how this has taken so long, right? That is one part of it which I would want you to answer. The other is, how should the ad fraternity reckon with the fact that real money gaming has been linked by policymakers to addiction, financial ruin, and even reported suicides? At some point, do you believe advertising by glamorizing the gaming through endorsements and high energy campaigns indirectly contributed to this crisis of addiction that we saw?
No, it's not. It doesn't contribute to addiction. Addiction is because you win or lose. It's the high of being actually gambling with real money. That is an addiction. The game itself is not an addiction. Advertising only promotes the game. It doesn't promote the fact that you are benefited by it with large amounts of money, or you lose large amounts of money at some stage or another. Now, the point is that advertising does not play any role in addicting you to the game. It promotes the game, the excitement, and the fact that it's very easy to do at the end of the day. And the addiction comes later when you start getting involved in the game itself.
Yeah. But Mr. Khakkar, as you pointed out, you're absolutely right. But what do you think, or rather, why do you think it took so long for that realization to happen? Although it's a breakthrough now, but in your purview, how do you look at it?
You see, the point was that everybody had stake in it, including the government, because they were earning money from it. And at the end of it, it's like saying that you ban liquor advertising, but you can't ban liquor because the state actually survives of it. And all the excise duties that you put on liquor. So it's like a catch-22 situation. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So everybody was like, party to the whole thing. And as long as there was no public opinion which actually gained momentum over a period of time, and that it came out into the open and media also started carrying it, that the government itself was actually forced to take a call on it because they should have done it right in the beginning. But they didn't because they were all had a stake in it. And I'm sure they were all benefiting in some manner or another.
All right. As you put that into perspective, Mr. Khakkar, one thing that we have observed for so long is that during major sporting leagues and, of course, other marquee properties as well, the real money gaming alone accounted for up to 4,500 crores in sponsorship and ad spends. So in that sense, what happens to the economics of this entire, holistic approach? Because they're broadcasters, they're OTTs and sporting leagues, when such a financial backbone, in fact, collapses overnight.
Well, like all good things that have to come to an end at some stage, because slightly in a grey area, even this will will not die. Yeah. It will go underground. And as you know, that, in India, anything that is banned eventually becomes much more popular as an underground game. So they will find other platforms and they'll find means and ways to actually continue without having to go through government control. And it's a game that they play all the time. But having said that, why can't we just legalize gaming? I mean, everywhere in the world, all sports are legal. You can legally gamble on horses. You can legally gamble on dogs, on cricket, on football, on you name it. And it's not created any huge social issues or what you call problems. As long as you make it legal, you can actually monitor it. The moment you make it illegal, you can't monitor it because it goes underground.
Absolutely. In fact, as you look at it, that's the other side to perhaps look at the coin in terms of the fact that should it be legalized. But that's definitely not happening, at least for now. But taking a cue from what you said, right, there will be a way to kind of navigate this. And in that classic Indian term, jugaad, where people perhaps can find it. And that's essentially, Mr. Khakkar, what critics argue as well, that a blanket prohibition risks pushing players to unregulated offshore apps, which may heighten, of course, consumer harm. But does the government's choice of a complete ban instead of graded restrictions strike you as protection or policy overreach? We understand the intent here. But in that purview, how do you look at it?
I think they're just playing moral policeman at the end of the day. After all, the people involved are adults who are gaming on winning or losing or whatever the hell they're doing. And they do that in Satta as well. They haven't been able to control Satta. If they legalize it, they can at least control it. I mean, which nobody seems to be looking at. It's like the elephant in the room. Just legalize the damn thing and control it. And earn money from it also,
But talking about the elephant in the room and perhaps accountability as well, what we're given to understand, Mr. Khakkar, is that the ASCI reported that 92% of these RMG ads violated guidelines in 2022-23, with celebrity endorsements being non-compliant. Almost, we're given to understand, this report says 97% of the time. So essentially, when you look at it, the bill also enforces penalties. This is up to 3 years imprisonment and heavy fines to promoters, for our viewers to better understand that, and endorsements. But how significant is this escalation in accountability, and does that signal a new era where advertisers and celebrities, in fact, are treated as equally liable as brands? Because you definitely know what you're getting into. You know it's an impressionable, perhaps, age group that you're also kind of putting that forward to.
See, it's a grey area because legally, nobody really knows how liable a celebrity or a brand ambassador or an advertiser is, to be very honest. Because if the advertising party, that is the original owner of the game, indemnifies them legally, then there's nothing you can do about it. You know, the fact that there's an onus of responsibility because of the ethical and the moral issues, that's a completely different issue altogether. So nobody has examined this legally as whether you can actually bring them to court and sue them and fine them and do it legally, without just being a big bully. So if you have to put into a system, it has to be legally tenable.
But the other purview of this is that when you look at these numbers also, Mr. Kakkar, that with an estimated 155 million daily gamers is what we're understanding, and a projected $9 billion market by 2029, now under threat clearly with job losses as well. But I want to understand from you, what implications does this collapse have for the creative economy, especially agencies, production houses and storytellers who had, of course, built narratives around gaming?
Well, it's part of the game. They should have, they made hay while the sun shone. Now the sun has been blocked. So they have to go back and start doing some serious thinking about what serious clients that they can actually chase instead of the low-hanging fruit, which is the gaming, platform. Because they were making so much money hand over fist that they didn't have a problem with budgets. So advertising agencies were really having a great time. Whoever was handling their accounts, they were going to town. Now the lean season is coming. They better tighten their belts and relook at themselves and see what they can do seriously with legitimate plans.
Talking about how advertising is also involved, there's nobody better than you, Mr. Kakkar, to put that into perspective. Because one thing that we've seen is how it has reshaped digital advertising strategies as well. How will this shift that? Particularly, programmatic influencer-led and in-game advertising formats that had grown because of, let's say, RMG budgets. Look at the amount of money that was invested in this, for influencers, digital creators. Gaming, in fact, was among the biggest revenue drivers. And, the fact of the matter is, while there were big names, there were also other sort of names who were promoting this. So what does that ban do to the creator economy? And how, in your opinion, might they pivot?
Well, they'll find nobody's going to starve. Everybody's going to find themselves other clients and other wings of working. So this particular system, which was an economic system by itself and sustained so many people, will now actually be driven underground. So everybody will find some means to actually figure out, like they do for alcohol, for instance. There's surrogate advertising happening on alcohol. They'll find some way of surrogate advertising, even gambling, for that matter, which is legally tenable. So don't worry. It's like water. It finds its own what do you may call it? It finds its own level. Regardless of how much you dam it, you can't stop it. If there's money to be made, people will find a way to do it.
It will be made.
Yes.
People will find a way to do it. But in the aspect of how you're looking at this, Mr. Kakkar, what do you believe are the challenges in this? Of course, that intent has been made very clear from the government side. We're looking at how this is, of course, impacting immediately in the last 24 hours at least. But any challenges or loopholes that you're finding currently in this scenario?
Right now, they haven't figured it out. I think they're too shocked by the fact that suddenly the gravy train has been stopped dead in its tracks. But they'll find a way. I mean, come on, human beings are great jugaduja. I mean, especially in this country. They'll find some way out. But the creative side of it might take a beating, and they might have to start becoming legitimate and start looking for real jobs instead of, low-hanging fruit like gambling, campaigns. So I'm sure they have the talent and the depth to be able to survive it. They might take a dhakka, they might take a little bit of a beating.
So you're saying they would find,
Of course they find alternative ways to survive because they have the creative talent, they have the hunger, and they have the business acumen, and they will find other avenues of how to make themselves useful. Nobody is going to just lie down and say, "Mar gaye."
Well, technically not. But taking a cue from what you said, Mr. Kakkar, the fact of the matter is, since we're all part of the creative industry, if I may say so, we are resilient as people. So I'm sure no matter what happens, how much ever it evolves, you always find a way to come back as well. But Mr. Kakkar, let me ask you this, right? The other scenario that we're looking at here is the push for esports, for the other aspect of what the government wants to do in that scenario. What lesson will the advertising industry learn from that now, given there is a push for that, but the lesson which has come with this ban? Cautious?
It's
is
like
that
this.
the word we're going for?
When any kind of gaming involves money and making money, it is far more attractive and addictive than if it is just a matter of skill. You understand? So a matter of skill is like a side hobby. A money-earning gaming game is actually mainstream. It's center of your thing. Your entire concentration is there to make money off the game, as well as look at your skills and your chances that you take on it. So by promoting non-gambling e-gaming facilities, they will get a little bit of traction, but not the kind of traction that money gambling actually got them. So let's be very clear about that.
Talking about the way forward and what you put into context, looking forward, which sectors you expect to step up into the vacuum? What I do mean by this is there is fintech, there's e-commerce, there's health tech, but can any of them realistically match the scale and aggression of RMG in ad innovation, especially during sporting seasons, right? Because that's where we've seen this impact the largest, perhaps.
Innovation will always be there. Whether you give them a bhalta product or whether you give them a great product, it doesn't really matter. But the fact is that the success of the industry itself was pure. The glue of the success of the industry itself was the fact that you're winning or losing money. And that, if you take away from the whole business of e-gaming, then it will become a little thanda, shall we say, a little tame. But the advertising will be just as aggressive. Don't worry about that.
So, in fact, right, Mr. Kakkar, in fact, perhaps if putting that into context with the fact that you said Thanda takes us back to the fact of your particular ad many years ago, if you did get what I'm trying to draw into perspective with that. But thank you very much, Mr. Kakkar, for joining us here this evening. Not only sharing with us how you're looking at this, but essentially, for the ad world, what that means for the benefit of viewers also tonight. But for the moment, we leave the conversation at that. An absolute pleasure to be in conversation with you. Having said that, we're slipping in a quick break here on Business at 9. Stay with us. We're going to be right back with lots more on the other side that we're keeping you ahead of this Thursday evening.